They gave up all hope, then Earth's Juggernaut pierced the stars. The mining station Kepler 442b floated in the darkness like a dying ember, its hull scarred by weeks of relentless bombardment. Inside the main control room, Director Daiki Nakamura stared at the tactical display with hollow eyes, his fingers trembling as they traced the red markers covering the screen. Each marker represented a Threnari warship in the blockade that had trapped them for 37 days. 37 days of hell. "Status report," Daiki said, his voice barely above a whisper, the words scraping against his throat like broken glass. Dr. Ava Thornton looked up from her console, her dark skin pale with exhaustion, deep circles under her eyes telling the story of sleepless nights spent treating the wounded and dying. "Life support is at 23% and dropping. Food synthesizers failed completely yesterday morning. Water recycling is holding, but the filters are degrading faster than we can repair them." She paused, consulting her tablet with shaking hands. "At current consumption rates, accounting for the children who need more calories, we have maybe 4 days left. Maybe 3 if the recyclers fail." Daiki nodded slowly, each piece of information another nail in humanity's coffin. The Kepler mining station had been humanity's most distant outpost, a testament to human ambition in the Vega system, 8 light-years from Earth. They had come here with dreams of securing the rare elements that would fuel humanity's expansion among the stars. Now it was their tomb, suspended in the void with no hope of rescue. "How many survivors?" Daiki asked, though he dreaded the answer. 218 souls, replied Chief Engineer Phoenix Reeves, his calloused hands never stopping their work on a damaged console, sparks flying as he bypassed another burned circuit. 34 are children under the age of 16. Dr. Martinez is doing what she can for the injured, but without proper medical supplies. He didn't need to finish. The weight of those numbers pressed down on Daiki like the gravity of a collapsing star. 218 people who had followed humanity's dream of reaching for the stars, who had trusted him to lead them to a better future. Now, they were trapped in a metal coffin, slowly dying while alien predators circle outside like vultures waiting for carrion. The Threnari had appeared without warning 3 months ago, their crystalline ships emerging from hyperspace like angels of death. Their vessels were unlike anything in human databases, living constructs that pulsed with bioluminescent energy, their hulls appearing to breathe and adapt in real time. When they had first made contact, Daiki had hoped for peaceful first contact, perhaps even trade agreements. Instead, they had demanded humanity's immediate withdrawal from what they claimed as their sacred territory. When the miners had tried to explain, they were simply extracting rare elements from the asteroid belt. That they meant no harm to any claimed worlds. The aliens had opened fire without another word. "Sir!" Communications Officer Luna Park called out, her young voice tight with stress, her hands dancing across her console with practiced efficiency despite her exhaustion. "I'm receiving another transmission from the Threnari flagship. Same frequency as before." "Put it through," Daiki said, steeling himself for another round of alien demands. He straightened his shoulders, trying to project strength he no longer felt. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the nightmarish features of Hive Lord Zicthera. The creature's compound eyes reflected the bridge lights like fractured mirrors, each facet seeming to focus on a different aspect of human weakness. Its mandibles clicked in what Daiki had learned was their equivalent of a sneer, while smaller appendages writhed around what might have been its mouth. "Human Director," Zicthera's voice buzzed through the universal translator, each word dripping with contempt and disgust. "Your species continues to pollute our sacred mining grounds with your primitive technology and disgusting biological presence. You have 12 of your planetary rotations to surrender all personnel for processing. Compliance will result in swift termination. Resistance will result in prolonged suffering before termination." Daiki stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "Hive Lord Zicthera, we've told you before we didn't know this system was claimed by your people. We received no territorial warnings, no previous claims in our databases. We are peaceful miners, not invaders. Allow us to evacuate our people and we'll never return to this system. You have my word." Zicthara's mandibles clicked faster, the sound like breaking glass. Ignorance is not absolution, flesh creature. Your species spreads like a plague across the galaxy, consuming resources that belong to the ancient races, defiling worlds with your presence. You build your colonies on the bones of civilizations that existed when your sun was young. This contamination ends here, with your deaths. The alien leaned closer to its own screen, its compound eyes seeming to multiply Daiki's image into 1,000 fragments. We have studied your kind, human. You are weak, short-lived, dependent on machinery to survive in the void. You wage war against each other over scraps of resources while we command the power of living ships. Your Earth sends no rescue because they know you are already dead. Why prolong the inevitable? The transmission cut to static, leaving the bridge in oppressive silence. Processing, Ava said quietly, her voice hollow. Every report we've received from the outer colonies, every transmission from ships that encountered the Threnary. Processing always means death, slow death. They study us while we die. Daiki closed his eyes, trying to block out the images that had haunted his dreams for weeks. Reports from the Proxima station before it went dark. The screaming transmission from the merchant vessel *Aurora*, before the signal cut to silence. The Threnari didn't just kill, they experimented, learned, adapted. He thought of his daughter Yuki back on Earth, probably starting her second year at the Colonial Defense Academy. She had wanted to follow in his footsteps, to push humanity's boundaries further into space, to explore strange new worlds and meet alien civilizations. In her messages, she spoke of the romance of space exploration, the adventure of first contact. Now she might never get the chance. If the Threnari were systematically eliminating human colonies, Earth itself might be next. Sir, Phoenix said, looking up from his repairs, his weathered face grim with determination. I've been thinking about our options. The quantum relay in Section C is still partially functional. The Threnari jamming is powerful, but it's not perfect. There are micro fluctuations in their field strength every few hours. Luna shook her head, her expression defeated. Phoenix, even if we could punch through their jamming, at this distance a quantum burst would take weeks to reach the Sol system. And Earth's fastest ships would need 8 months to travel here, even with the new fusion drives. We'll be long dead by then. Maybe, Phoenix said, his engineer's mind working through possibilities others couldn't see. But Earth needs to know what happened here. They need to know about the Threnari threat, their capabilities, their technology. If we're going to die, we can at least make sure our deaths serve a purpose. Daiki considered this, weighing options that all led to the same dark conclusion. Earth's United Space Command had protocols for lost colonies, contingency plans for various disaster scenarios. But they'd never faced anything like the Threnary. The insectoid aliens commanded technology that surpassed human science by centuries, perhaps millennia. Their bioships could repair themselves, adapt to new weapons, evolve countermeasures in real time. Do it, Daiki decided, his voice carrying the weight of command. Compile everything we have on Threnari capabilities, their fleet composition, their tactics, their technology. Include the medical data on their biological weapons. Maybe it will help the next colony they encounter. Maybe it will help Earth prepare. As Phoenix worked to encode the message, alarms began blaring throughout the station. The lights flickered and died, replaced by the red glow of emergency power. The constant hum of life support systems stuttered and changed pitch. They're increasing their jamming field strength, Luna reported, frantically working at her console. All standard communication channels are blocked. Even short-range frequencies are being disrupted. On the main screen, the Threnari fleet was moving with predatory grace. The crystalline ships rearranged themselves into a complex attack formation, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with deadly energy that painted the void in shades of death. Each vessel was unique, as if grown rather than built, their organic curves and living armor making them appear more like deep-sea creatures than spacecraft. They're preparing for the final assault, Ava whispered, her scientific mind cataloging the alien formation patterns even as fear gripped her heart. Daiki looked around at his crew, these brave souls who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment in human space, who had followed him to the edge of known space in pursuit of humanity's dreams. They deserve better than this. Humanity deserved better than extinction at the hands of creatures who saw them as nothing more than a bacterial infection to be eliminated. "All hands, this is Director Nakamura," he announced over the station's intercom, his voice carrying to every section of the dying outpost. "The Threnari are moving to final attack positions. I want all non-essential personnel to move to the central habitation modules immediately. Emergency protocols are now in effect. Families should stay together. We've been through hell together, and if this is the end, we face it with dignity." He paused, thinking of words that could provide comfort when there was none to be found. "To those who have families on Earth, know that your sacrifice here will not be forgotten. Your courage in the face of impossible odds represents the best of human spirit. Whatever happens next, we stand together." He turned to his bridge crew, these people who had become more than colleagues over the months of siege. "How long until they're in firing range?" 15 minutes, Ava replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "Their bioplasma weapons have an effective range of approximately 50,000 kilometers. At their current approach speed..." Daiki nodded grimly. 15 minutes to say goodbye to everything they built here. 15 minutes before humanity's furthest outpost became another casualty in an alien war they'd never wanted to fight, never even known existed until it was too late. Deep in the station's core, Phoenix worked desperately on the quantum relay. The device was a marvel of human engineering, capable of transmitting information instantaneously across interstellar distances through quantum entanglement. But the Threnari jamming was growing stronger by the minute, their living ships adapting their interference patterns to counter every frequency Phoenix tried. The message to Earth was encoded and ready, terabytes of data on Threnari capabilities, tactical analyses, technical specifications of their bioships, everything humanity would need to prepare for the coming storm. But getting it through the alien jamming field seemed impossible. "Come on," Phoenix muttered, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked. "Just give me 10 seconds. 10 seconds of clear transmission." The jamming field fluctuated slightly as the Threnari ships adjusted their formation. Phoenix saw his chance and slammed his hand down on the transmission button. For a brief moment, faster-than-light particles streaked toward Earth, carrying humanity's final warning about the Threnari threat. The quantum burst punched through the jamming field like a bullet through paper, racing across the void at speeds that made light seem sluggish. Then the field reasserted itself, cutting off all communications with crushing finality. Phoenix slumped in his chair, exhaustion and despair warring in his expression. It was done. Whether the message would reach Earth in time to matter, whether it would make any difference in the face of Threnari military superiority, he didn't know. But they had tried. In their final moments, humanity had refused to go quietly into the dark. The first Threnari weapon struck the station's outer hull with devastating precision. Bioplasma bolts ate through the reinforced titanium steel alloy like acid through paper, their living energy seeming to corrupt the very molecules of the station's structure. The entire outpost shuddered as sections began to depressurize, emergency bulkheads slamming shut to contain the damage. On the bridge, Daiki watched the damage reports cascade across his screens like an avalanche of doom. They were losing hull integrity fast, the station's superstructure buckling under the alien assault. At this rate, Kepler 442b would break apart in minutes, scattering its population into the unforgiving vacuum of space. "Sir," Luna called out, her voice barely audible over the sound of groaning metal and failing systems. "I'm detecting something on the long-range sensors. Multiple contacts coming in fast from the direction of Earth." Daiki frowned, his mind struggling to process this impossible information. "More Threnari ships. Reinforcements?" "No, sir." Luna's voice rose with excitement and disbelief. "The energy signatures are completely different. Much different. They're human signatures, but like nothing in our databases." The tactical display updated, showing new contacts approaching from the direction of Earth at velocities that should have been impossible. Daiki stared at the readouts, his scientific mind rejecting what his eyes were telling him. No human ship could travel 8 light-years in the few hours since Phoenix had sent their message. "How many ships?" Daiki asked, his voice hoarse. "I count. 12 contacts. Large ones. Really large. Sir, these aren't just ships, they're monsters. Each one is larger than our biggest orbital platforms. The Threnari seem to have noticed the newcomers too. Their coordinated attack on the station ceased abruptly as they turned to face this new threat, their bioships pulsing with increased energy as they prepared for battle. On the main screen, Zikthara's image appeared again, the alien's compound eyes reflecting confusion and rage. Unknown vessels, Zikthara transmitted on an open channel, his voice crackling with interference. You are entering a system claimed by the Threnari Collective. Identify yourselves immediately or be processed like the humans you seek to protect. The response came from the lead ship, carried on a frequency that cut through the Threnari, jamming like a hot knife through butter. The signal was crystal clear, stronger than anything in human technology, and it carried a voice that made Daiki's heart skip a beat. This is Admiral Hiroshi Sato of the United Earth Defense Force, commanding the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. You are ordered to cease your attack on human civilians immediately and withdraw from the system. You have 60 seconds to comply. Daiki's heart nearly stopped. That voice, he recognized it from news broadcasts, from academy graduation ceremonies, from the speeches that had inspired a generation of space explorers. Admiral Hiroshi Sato, Earth's most decorated military commander, the architect of humanity's deep space defense strategy. But how was he here? How was anyone here? On the tactical display, the human ships were resolving into clear images, and what Daiki saw defied everything he thought he knew about human technology. These weren't the familiar designs of Earth's colonial fleet. They were massive, angular constructs that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their hulls appeared to be made of some dark material that shifted and flowed like liquid metal, and energy patterns danced across their surfaces in complex geometric designs. Each ship was easily 3 times the size of the largest Threnari biovessel, their dark presence against the stars like predators that had evolved in the deepest trenches of space. They moved with a fluid grace that belied their enormous size, maintaining perfect formation despite their incredible velocity. Zikthara's mandibles clicked frantically, the sound carrying clearly over the open channel. Impossible! No species has mastered instantaneous travel across such distances. Our scouts have observed your primitive vessels. They require months to cross the void between stars. You cannot be here. Admiral Sato's reply was calm and measured, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. Hive Lord Zikthara, your intelligence is outdated. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we will consider you a hostile force threatening human civilians. Arrogant mammals, Zikthara snarled, his bioship pulsing with increased energy. You face the might of the Threnari Collective, perfected over millennia of conquest. Our fleet will consume your pathetic vessels and add your technology to our own. All ships, open fire. Show these primitives the price of defiance. The Threnari fleet surged forward like a living wave of destruction, their bioluminescent hulls flaring with deadly energy. Plasma bolts and living torpedoes streaked toward the human vessels in a coordinated assault that had obliterated dozens of other species. The sheer volume of fire was overwhelming enough destructive force to vaporize a small moon. Instead of meeting the attack head-on, the human ships simply vanished. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, space was empty except for the confused Threnari fleet and their still incoming weapons. The alien bioships fired into emptiness, their living torpedoes detonating harmlessly against the void where their targets had been just moments before. Then, the human ships reappeared, scattered throughout the Threnari formation like ghosts materializing from another dimension. They had somehow teleported through space, repositioning themselves with impossible precision to maximize their tactical advantage. What the hell? Phoenix breathed, staring at the tactical display with wide eyes. The battle that followed was unlike anything Daiki had ever witnessed, even in his worst nightmares. The human ships moved with impossible speed and precision, their weapon systems unleashing devastating torrents of energy that cut through Threnari bio-armor like it was tissue paper. But these weren't crude plasma weapons or kinetic projectiles. These were beams of pure destruction that seemed to unmake matter at the atomic level. But it wasn't just the technology that amazed him, it was the tactics. The human fleet fought with a coordination that spoke of months of planning and preparation, their movements choreographed like a deadly dance. They targeted specific systems on each Threnari ship with surgical precision, disabling propulsion organs, severing weapons appendages, crippling bioships without destroying them outright. "They're not trying to annihilate them," Ava observed, watching the battle unfold with scientific fascination, despite their desperate situation. "They're systematically disabling them, capturing them." Within minutes, the seemingly invincible Threnari fleet was reduced to helpless wreckage. Their bioships floated in space like wounded animals, their weapon systems severed, their propulsion organs dead, their hulls cracked and bleeding whatever alien fluid served as their blood. Only Zikthara's flagship remained partially functional, its crystalline hull cracked, but not shattered. Admiral Sato's voice filled the communications channel, calm and professional despite the carnage he had just orchestrated. "Hive Lord Zikthara, your fleet is defeated. Your bioships are disabled but salvageable. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to interstellar law." Zikthara's response was filled with rage, disbelief, and something Daiki had never heard from a Threnari before: fear. "This is impossible. Our bioships are the pinnacle of evolution, perfected over millions of years. They adapt, they learn, they evolve. How do you possess such technology? How do you move through space itself?" "We learn from the best teachers," Sato replied, his voice carrying a dark undertone. "Species that tried to destroy us, only to discover that humans are remarkably good at adapting. Every enemy that has attacked humanity has taught us something valuable. Today you're learning what we've taught ourselves." As Daiki watched in amazement, smaller craft detached from the human fleet and moved toward the crippled Threnari ships like mechanical remoras. But one vessel approached the mining station, a sleek craft that seemed to flow through space rather than travel through it, docking with their main airlock with impossible precision. Minutes later, the airlock cycled, and a woman in an unfamiliar military uniform stepped onto the bridge. She was tall and composed, with short-cropped silver hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. Behind her came a squad of soldiers in advanced armor that hummed with energy, their weapons incorporating technology that seemed decades ahead of anything Daiki had ever seen. "Director Nakamura," the woman said, offering her hand with a smile that transformed her stern features. "I'm Captain Nova Sterling, UEDF Special Operations Division. We received your distress call." Daiki shook her hand, still trying to process what had happened, his mind reeling from the sudden shift from certain death to impossible rescue. "Captain Sterling, how did you get here so fast? Our message couldn't have reached Earth more than a few hours ago." Nova's smile faded, replaced by an expression of grim satisfaction. "Director, that message reached Earth 3 months ago." The bridge fell into stunned silence. "That's impossible," Ava said, her scientific training rebelling against the statement. "Quantum communication doesn't work that way. There's no instantaneous transmission across interstellar distances. The quantum entanglement breaks down over such vast spaces." "There is, if you know how to fold space-time itself," Nova replied, her voice carrying the confidence of someone stating an obvious fact. "Your distress call didn't travel through normal space, Director. It took a shortcut through dimensions we've learned to access." Phoenix leaned forward, his engineer's mind racing with possibilities and implications. "Are you saying Earth has mastered faster-than-light communication? That we can send messages instantly across any distance?" "Among other things," Nova said cryptically. "Director, the moment your message reached Earth, every resource of the United Defense Force was mobilized. We've been preparing for something like the Threnari for longer than you might think." Daiki felt a chill run down his spine, a sense that there was far more to this story than he understood. "You knew about them? You knew about the Threnari Collective?" "We knew something was coming," Nova explained, her expression growing darker. "Earth's deep space monitoring stations have been tracking the systematic destruction of various civilizations for years. Entire species simply vanishing without explanation, their worlds left barren, their colonies reduced to radioactive debris. We started preparing for the worst-case scenario." "But how did Earth develop technology like this so quickly?" Ava asked, gesturing toward the main screen where the human fleet maintained its formation around the captured Threnari vessels. "This is beyond anything in our theoretical projections." Nova's expression grew serious, almost haunted. "Because Earth learned a hard lesson 60 years ago, Dr. Thornton. The Kepler colony incident wasn't our first contact with hostile aliens. The revelation hit Daiki like a physical blow, rewriting everything he thought he knew about human history. There were other first contacts. 5 separate incidents over 6 decades, Nova confirmed, her voice carrying the weight of classified history. Each time, we barely survived. Each time we lost colonies, ships, thousands of lives. But each time, we learned from our enemy's technology. We reverse-engineered their weapons, studied their tactics, improved our defenses, incorporated their innovations into our own designs. She gestured toward the view screen where the human fleet's dark ships maintained their vigil. What you're seeing here is 60 years of preparation for this exact scenario. Every hostile contact taught us something new. The Altarian Raiders showed us energy shielding. The Vegan Collective demonstrated bioship technology. The Rigel Syndicate revealed dimensional manipulation. And the Threnari? Daiki asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Will teach us about adaptive bio-armor and living ship construction, Nova said with grim satisfaction. Their mistake was assuming we were still the primitive species they first encountered decades ago. On the main screen, Admiral Sato's image appeared, his weathered face showing the scars of someone who had fought this secret war for most of his career. Director Nakamura, this is Admiral Sato. I understand you and your people have been through hell, but I need you to know something important. Your courage in sending that warning may have saved the humanity itself. Daiki looked around at his exhausted crew, these people who had faced certain death with dignity and courage. Admiral, we were just trying to survive, trying to warn Earth about what was coming. You did far more than survive, Sato replied, his voice carrying deep respect. Your message contained detailed intelligence on Threnari capabilities, their fleet composition, their tactics, their bioship technology. That information allowed us to plan this operation with precision, to develop countermeasures, to turn their own adaptive abilities against them. Without your sacrifice, without your data, we might have suffered significant casualties. Nova activated a holographic display that filled the center of the bridge, showing the broader tactical situation across human space. Red markers indicated Threnari incursions, while blue markers showed the positions of Earth's new defense fleets. Director, Nova said, her voice grave, the Threnari aren't just random raiders. Our intelligence indicates they're scouts for something much larger. A confederation of ancient species that views younger civilizations as existential threats to be eliminated before they can mature. Then this isn't over, Daiki said, understanding dawning in his voice. No, Nova admitted. But today, humanity proved we're not the easy prey they thought we were. Today, we showed the galaxy that Earth's children will not go quietly into extinction. And we have you and your people to thank for that. As the human fleet secured the captured Threnari vessels, Daiki found himself thinking about the larger implications of what had happened. Humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars, of finding their place among the galactic community, of peaceful exploration and scientific advancement. Instead, they'd found a universe where survival meant fighting for every colony, every outpost, every life. But they'd also discovered something else, that humans possessed something their enemies didn't expect. The ability to learn, to adapt, to turn your defeat into victory through ingenuity and determination. Most importantly, they had discovered that they were not alone in their struggle. Captain Sterling, Daiki said, a new thought occurring to him. What happens to the mining station? To our operation here? The station will be rebuilt and fortified, Nova replied. But the mining operation will continue under military protection. Earth needs those rare elements now more than ever. We're building a defense fleet that will make today's action look like a preliminary skirmish. Phoenix looked up from his console, where he had been studying the human ship's energy signatures. If I may ask, Captain, how many ships does Earth have like these? Nova's smile was cold and sharp as a blade. Enough, Mr. Reeves. The Threnari Confederation thinks they're facing a primitive species that can barely leave its home system. They're about to learn that humanity has been preparing for this war longer than they've been planning it. Later, as the evacuation proceeded and the station's survivors were transferred to the safety of the human fleet, Daiki stood in his quarters packing the few personal items he could take with him. A photo of his daughter, Yuki, caught his eye, her graduation from the Colonial Defense Academy, her bright smile full of hope for the future, her dreams of exploring strange new worlds. Director, Ava's voice came over the intercom, interrupting his thoughts. Captain Sterling is requesting your presence on the bridge. She says it's important. When Daiki arrived, he found Nova studying a three-dimensional star chart that showed the positions of various human colonies throughout the local sector. Red zones marked areas of Threnari activity, while green zones indicated secured human space. Director, she said without looking up from the display, I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. Earth is expanding the Deep Space Early Warning Network, Nova explained, manipulating the hologram to show planned installations across dozens of star systems. We need experienced personnel to man stations in critical sectors. People who understand what we're facing out here, who've seen the enemy up close and lived to tell about it. Daiki considered this, studying the vast network of defensive positions being planned. You're asking me to put more lives at risk. I'm asking you to help save them, Nova corrected. The Threnari Confederation has been picking off isolated colonies for decades, destroying entire civilizations before they could call for help. But if we can establish a network of defended outposts, coordinate our responses, share intelligence instantaneously across human space, we can turn the tide of this war. On the main screen, the captured Threnari flagship was being towed toward one of the human vessels, its bioluminescent hull still pulsing weakly with alien life. Through its cracked exterior, Daiki could see the organic interior where Threnari crew members were being taken into custody. What will happen to them? He asked. Prisoner exchange, Nova said. The Confederation has captured some of our people over the years, but more importantly, we'll learn from them. Every species that's tried to destroy humanity has taught us something valuable. The Threnari will be no different. And their technology, their bioships, will be studied, reverse engineered, and incorporated into our own designs where appropriate, Nova said matter-of-factly. That's how we've survived this long, Director. We take the best of what our enemies offer and make it better. Daiki thought about the past 37 days, the fear, the desperation, the certainty that they were all going to die, forgotten in the void. Then he thought about the moment those impossible human ships had appeared from nowhere, bringing hope when all seemed lost, proving that humanity would never abandon its own. My daughter wants to follow in my footsteps, he said quietly. She's at the academy now, training to serve on the new ships. Then she'll need experienced commanders to learn from, Nova replied. People who understand what's really at stake out here. Daiki nodded slowly, his decision crystallizing. Where do you need me? Nova smiled, and for the first time since the crisis began, it reached her eyes. The Ross 128 system. We're establishing a major listening post and fleet base there. If the Confederation is planning something bigger, that's where we'll detect it first. As the evacuation ships prepared for departure, Daiki took one last look at the mining station that had been his home for 3 years. The damage from the Threnari attack was extensive, but it could be repaired. More importantly, it would be defended. Never again would human colonists face extinction alone. Director, Luna called out from her temporary station aboard the evacuation ship. I'm receiving a priority transmission from Earth. It's marked as personal. Daiki accepted the communication, and his daughter's face appeared on the screen. She was older now, more mature, wearing the uniform of a junior officer in the United Defense Force, but her eyes still held the same bright curiosity and determination he remembered. Dad, she said, tears streaming down her face. We heard what happened to Kepler. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine, sweetheart, Daiki replied, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. Scared, but fine. How's the academy? How are your studies? I graduated early, she said proudly, straightening in her chair. They fast-tracked all cadets through the program when the Threnari threat became apparent. Dad, I'm assigned to the new Defender-class ships. I'm going to be out there with you, protecting the colonies. Daiki felt a mixture of pride and fear wash over him. The stars are more dangerous than we thought, kiddo. This isn't the peaceful exploration we dreamed about. I know, she said, her voice firm with determination that reminded him of her mother. That's exactly why we need to be out there. Somebody has to stand guard over humanity's future. Somebody has to make sure the darkness doesn't win. As the communication ended, Daiki realized that his daughter had learned the same lesson he had. That her generation understood what his had only recently discovered. The universe was vast and dangerous, filled with ancient species that viewed humanity as nothing more than an obstacle to be removed. But humans had something their enemies didn't expect: the refusal to give up, the ability to turn desperation into determination, and most importantly, the knowledge that they stood together. The evacuation fleet engaged their drives, leaving the Kepler system behind in a blaze of exotic energy. But they weren't running away. They were regrouping, preparing for the next phase of humanity's expansion into the stars. Admiral Sato's voice came over the fleet-wide communication system, reaching every ship, every survivor, every soul who had witnessed humanity's defiance in the face of extinction. All ships, this is Admiral Sato. Today we prove that humanity will not be intimidated by those who mistake our relative youth for weakness. The Threnari Confederation believed they could eliminate us before we became a threat. They were right about one thing: we will become a threat. To every species that preys on the innocent, that destroys colonies for the crime of existing, that believes might makes right in this galaxy. On the tactical display, more human ships were arriving from Earth. Massive vessels emerging from folded space-time like dark angels of vengeance. Each one carried the promise that no human colony would face annihilation alone again, that Earth's children would be protected no matter how far they traveled from home. But we won't become the monsters they are, Sato continued, his voice carrying across the void to reach every human ear. We'll be guardians, protectors, and when the next innocent species faces extinction at the hands of the Confederation, they'll find humanity standing between them and the darkness. Daiki looked out at the stars, at the vast expanse of space that humanity was determined to call home. Somewhere out there, the Threnari Confederation was learning that their easy prey had become a dangerous predator. Somewhere else, another species might be facing the same choice humanity had faced: surrender or fight. When that time came, they wouldn't face it alone. The juggernaut of human determination had pierced the stars, and it would not be stopped. In the darkness between worlds, hope had found its voice, and that voice spoke with the authority of Earth's children who refused to kneel before any master save their own conscience. The war for humanity's future had begun, and humanity intended to win.